As a new real estate investor, you may be wondering whether or not you should be buying a property in your actual name or through an LLC. And what happens if you don't use an LLC? Well, these are common questions, so don't worry. I'm gonna help explain what makes the most sense. What's up, guys? My name is McKeown, and I'm a licensed real estate agent and investor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as well as the Orlando market. And today we're gonna be discussing the pros and cons of purchasing real estate, whether or not it's under your personal name versus an LLC. But before we jump into today's video, if you guys are finding the content on this channel useful, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to always be notified when I release another video. But first things first, let's understand what an LLC is. An LLC is a limited liability company, and it can be either a single member, just you, or a multi-member, meaning you and multiple partners. It's a popular choice for protecting your assets, and here's why many investors prefer LLCs. Now, without an LLC, your personal details are easily searchable online through public records. This can be a risk if a tenant decides to sue you, as they can easily find out who you are and other personal details. Now, an LLC makes this substantially harder because the property is owned under your LLC's name, not your actual legal name, providing an extra layer of privacy. Now, if you don't have an LLC, you might want to rely on an umbrella policy insurance, which offers essentially extra coverage beyond typical homeowners insurance. However, this doesn't hide your personal details from public records or fully shield you from legal action. Now, just a quick caveat here, guys. If you are purchasing a home as a primary occupant with the intention to eventually move out of it and turn it into maybe a rental property, I wouldn't say setting up an LLC is going to be top priority, meaning you're buying a house for yourself and eventually maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it may be down the road, you look to rent it out. Although starting an LLC should not be your top priority, it should be something you're thinking about from a liability standpoint for the long run. Now, vice versa, if you look to purchase something solely as an investment property, I suggest that you try purchasing that if you are capable under the LLC versus your personal or private name. Setting up an LLC for your real estate transactions can protect not only your privacy, but also your other assets. Let's say if someone sues your LLC, they can only target the LLC's assets, not your actual personal assets. However, as I mentioned before, obtaining a loan for an LLC can often be tricky without any established business credit or a strong PAYDEX score, which is a rating that shows your business's creditworthiness. Now, to break down exactly how I operated with my rental portfolio, kind of as I started to acquire properties, my initial probably 3 properties, or I guess really 4 properties, were all purchased initially as primary occupant homes. I used my VA loan. I then used a conventional loan. I used a VA loan for the second time while I still had the other VA loan out. And then I purchased my primary house, effectively, that I'm filming this video in today, as my 4th property. And all of those were purchased because they were purchased solely as a primary residence within my actual legal name. Now, what happened after that was I started to build enough credit within my LLC that I was able to essentially purchase my first property, which was my commercial property, under my LLC's name. Now, I will make a side comment and say, me personally, the individual who I am, made a guarantee, or I was a guarantor on the loan, basically saying, hey, my LLC starts to default on that particular loan, me and my individual self will have to make up or pay the loan, or to essentially fall back on my personal credit. But as it states, that current mortgage, and still to this day, and I've owned it for about 3 years now, is not on my personal credit or not against my personal debt to income ratio. It's actually on my business's LLC and credit. Now, one thing that I do enjoy when it comes to putting essentially a real estate transaction or property under my LLC is oftentimes these smaller banks or these credit unions have different types of loans that they're going to be able to offer you as a business owner that, first of all, it's not going to hit your debt to income ratio. It's going to hit your business's debt to income ratio or credit worthiness. So it's not really affecting anything you're going to do personally. You may have to guarantee it like I did on that first transaction or the first property that I put under my LLC, but it's really not going to do anything negative to your personal credit. However, because these small banks or these credit unions have a little bit different, I guess, qualifications in terms of what they allow or what they don't allow, versus just getting a traditional Freddie or Fannie Mae loan, like a 30-year mortgage or utilizing your VA loan. It may be actually easier to qualify for that note, assuming that you have at least some level of creditworthiness with your LLC versus having to qualify on your own, because the standards in terms of what the bank or small bank or credit union allows may be a little bit more lenient than a traditional lender. Now, you might also want to consider how many properties to hold within one LLC. Overloading an LLC with too many assets can actually increase your risk if you wind up getting sued. Sometimes it makes sense to have multiple LLCs, each holding fewer properties to spread out the risk. Now, using an LLC for real estate investments can provide significant protection for your assets and personal information, making it a wise choice for many investors. Remember, real estate isn't just about earning income, it's also about managing risk and protecting your wealth effectively. Now, one thing when it comes to making multiple LLCs, I know a lot of developers essentially develop, let's say, multiple units in a small area. Okay, let's just use a random subdivision in East Dallas. Okay, if I'm developing multiple developments in that East Dallas area, they may create one single LLC for that large development that they're doing. Meaning, hey, if they're building 3 separate houses on the east side of Dallas, even though they may be 3 separate addresses, they'll clump those all together in one LLC. Now, another option is single-handedly creating an LLC for every single investment that you have. This will obviously protect your assets the most, but I'll go back and give you an example for that LLC that may have 3 properties underneath them. Now, what we call that is it's going to be a series LLC, meaning I have one LLC, maybe it's KMAC Real Estate. Well, that KMAC Real Estate is going to have separate entities underneath them as a series LLC for each individual real estate investment property that I own. So for instance, if one of my tenants wanted to go after me, they would only be able to go after me under one of the entities underneath my series entity itself, because I have a series entity, meaning the tenant himself could not go after my entire umbrella LLC because I have a series LLC, but rather they could only go after that particular property that they reside in. Now, obviously the example I gave earlier where I essentially had 4 properties underneath my name and 3 of them were at that point being rented out when I moved into this physical house. All 4 of those were underneath my actual physical name, no LLC. So by the time I moved into my 4th house, which was my 4th primary house and still the house that I'm currently living in as we speak, I essentially had all 4 of those properties underneath my own personal name. Now, the main reason why I didn't transfer those or deed those over to an LLC was 2 of the 3 that I essentially had as investment properties at this point. The 4th was obviously the primary house I'm living in. 2 of the 3 I utilized a VA loan in. And those VA loans, if I wanted to do maybe a VA IRRRL or an interest rate reduction loan at some point in the near future, which I actually wound up doing it twice on one property and once on the other, I wouldn't be able to do that if it was in an LLC's name, meaning I would have had to then deed it over to an LLC to protect myself from a liability standpoint, then deed it back to my own personal name to be able to do the VA IRRRL, and then deed it back to my LLC for, again, liability purposes. It was just going to be way too much of a headache when in reality there was really no, or I shouldn't say necessarily no, but there was very little to no risk kind of with the current real estate portfolio that I had. Now, as far as my personal opinion when it comes to creating an LLC, my suggestion would be, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily a top priority. Meaning, if someone wants to go after you and you own one real estate property, I guess truthfully, at the end of the day, good luck to them. They're gonna do essentially very minimal at most. Now, when it really makes sense for you to have an LLC is, let's say I personally wanted to purchase a 50-unit apartment complex. Now, that 50-unit apartment complex is going to have, hopefully, 40 to 50 tenants. That is 40 to 50 different people that can go after my assets. That is substantial. That is something I want to personally protect myself with. And if I don't protect myself from that, then I'm leaving myself up to a huge liability potentially in the future. So I've already mentioned a couple times, it shouldn't be necessarily a priority to start an LLC. Now, if you're a savvy and advanced real estate investor with a significant portfolio, then yes, you definitely need to have at least one LLC and have all of your investments underneath that one LLC. But more than likely, you probably need to have conversations with whoever you may need to be having conversations with to create a series LLC to protect you and more than likely your multi-million-dollar real estate business. Now, if you are curious about how exactly to set up an LLC or who to speak to, leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'll let you know exactly who I personally connected with, who set up my entire LLCs, because I do have 2 different LLCs and then a third LLC, which is a series LLC, which is where all of my real estate portfolio essentially is held now. But I'd love to be able to help you regardless if you live in Texas or Florida, which is both of the markets that I service. Anywhere in the country, I'm here to help you. So make sure to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Or if you have any questions whatsoever when it comes to just LLCs in general. If I didn't cover any of the questions that you may have, reach out to me. Again, comment section down below, or follow me on Instagram. The link is in my description. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help. And stay tuned for the next video.